Please welcome to the stage, SatoriShakoor, everybody.
Six years ago, when they closed the lid on my mother's casket, I was devastated. I knew I would never be the same again. I had no concept of life without her in it. She was my mother, my teacher, my friend. I wasn't ready to lose her yet. I was going through the early stages of menopause, and it was scary, and I needed her to guide me through the change. The only thing I took from her modest estate was her wig, and I smelled it until all her smell was gone. Well, my mother had asked me to go back to school to complete my degree. I was depressed. I was living in my pajamas. And I'm an actor. I was working down at the Gym Theater in downtown Detroit in a show called Menopause the Musical. And my mother loved that show. And she loved seeing me in it. But after she was gone, there were times when I had to ask the stage manager to hold the curtain so that I could recover. Well, all the ladies in the cast, they were so amazing. And I had great support. And 9 months later, there was nothing that could prepare me for the death of my son. He was my only child, and he had died from a massive seizure. He had been in a car accident a few years before, and he suffered a brain injury. When I kissed him goodbye, I was surprised at how cold his skin felt against my lips. And when they closed the casket, I died. I was a dead thing. A dead woman walking through her life, walking through classes 8 shows a week. I was traveling, entertaining, winning awards, and I didn't feel anything. I felt alone and isolated. And the rest of my life looked like a joyless chore to live. I knew I needed help when I collapsed in the men's department at Macy's, when I saw a mannequin wearing something that I knew my son might wear. So I joined a grief support group, and over the next few years, I cried and listened and talked, and I moved through the stages of guilt, of grief, denial, depression, anger, and finally acceptance and hope. I wanted to live. I wanted to connect with my life again. But I didn't know who I was or how or where I would even start. Well, there is a wisdom in menopause. And I discovered that it caught me off guard in unexpected and unpredictable ways. I was standing in Kroger's in the vegetable aisle. And all of a sudden, my hormones just went out of whack. It was like somebody flipped the switch. And all of a sudden, I am horny as hell. I'm talking about 15-year-old boys, one thing on his mind, horny. I'm talking about horny like Halle Berry and Monsters Ball on the 4th of July. If it was me in that movie, I would have fornicated with Billy Bob Thornton and his racist daddy too. Well, I looked over and I saw this man, and he was so fine. I'm thinking, damn, he looks good in that motorized wheelchair. I was just about to introduce myself when I saw the flash of his wedding ring, and I just turned my attention to the zucchini. But after that, I started seeing penises everywhere. I was surprised because I'm in menopause. I thought that when vaginal dryness met erectile dysfunction, it would be a perfect match. I don't want to, you can't, hey. I thought I could just have a little fun, coast, until I reached the promised land of dried up eggs and freedom from maxi pads. I was okay to just find an okay man and, book a cruise and wear matching outfits and get fat at the all-you-can-eat buffet. Instead, I was down on I-75 in Trumbull, flashing truckers, nipples to the wind. I didn't recognize myself. This is not me. I'm a political junkie. I pride myself on being up on current events. But I was hanging out in sex toy shops, buying bullets and boxes of vibrator batteries off of eBay. I had more testosterone than the Detroit Red Wings and Lions put together. I didn't realize how lonely I was, how in need of a man's touch. And when I couldn't take it anymore, I bought some stilettos, and I said, I need a man. So I went on Craigslist. Because Craigslist, it delivers right now. And I spotted an ad that was sane to my sensibilities. Good-looking, educated, house, car, job, gentleman at all times. Seeks mature lady for great conversation, drinks, and a possible relationship. So I programmed my GPS for Tom's Oyster Bar in Royal Oak. Now, I'm not going to say my standards were low walking in. Let's just say they were specific. If the man looked halfway decent and had a pulse, we'd get naked tonight. So I looked down the bar and I was hoping that the bad boy with the sideburns was him. So I get down there and that man looked good to me. Those bedroom eyes, those luscious lips, that big juicy Jewish nose, he looked like a Slurpee sitting on a bar stool. It was pure chemistry when he raked his body over or his eyes over my body. The lower regions was trying to sing the Hallelujah chorus. He was like, oh, you're so beautiful. You're more than I expected. And I was hoping to meet a black woman. And I said, oh, why? He said, I don't know, something different, exotic. Now, exotic is a racist buzzword for me. But it didn't sound racist coming from him. It just sounded honest. So I figured I'd be honest too. And I told him, I said, I love Jewish men. And I love Italian men who look Jewish. Matter of fact, I'm open to men of all races as long as they got a big schnozzle. And whenever I see a big nose, I want to break out in a Negro spiritual. Well, he laughed and I sat down at the bar and we engaged in some stimulating conversation. I was surprised. He was telling me real things about his life, like 3 generations of Russian Jewish family coming to America, creating a successful business. He said he was an artist, dealing with collectibles and antiques. Well, I had my identity hidden because after all, this was a Craigslist date. And I was distracted by all that juicy fruit on his face, but I'm listening. And then we put our cards on the table. He asked me, well, why did you answer my ad? And I told him about my long journey back from grief and loss and how my hormones had just went out of whack and how I came here to have a bang-up good time. So he said, well, sex is important to me too. And you look worthy of a relationship. And I'm open for a relationship. And relationship, well, that was like a red flag for me. Relationship is like a distraction. It's a woman trap. It's like a storefront of promises that you can't keep. And I didn't know whether I was ready for a relationship, ready to open my heart and lose again. But when he asked me would I come back to his house and see his African art collection, I said, yeah. When we get in his house, it looks like a whimsical folk art museum. I mean, art all over the walls. He said, go on upstairs, look around. So I went upstairs, and in his bedroom, there are all these framed concert posters. And one of them said, Parliament Funkadelic, Brides of Funkenstein, Paris, France, 1979. And I said, that's me. He said, oh, yes, that's one of my most valuable posters. That's one of my favorite groups. I said, no, you don't understand. I'm one of the Brides of Funkenstein. I used to sing with Parliament Funkadelic. He said, no shit. I said, yeah, shit. So he serenaded me on his guitar, and a few days later we made love, and it was amazing. I mean, I fell in love. I just opened my whole heart. It was the most fantastic. Well, we moved through the first month. Yes, there was a wrinkle, but we ironed it out. The second month, I wanted him all the time. I was just so effusive. Oh, you look so gorgeous. I love you. Oh, we hit some bumps, but we worked it through. On the third month, he said, Satori, you're too much for me. You know, you're too analytical, you're too intense, and you talk too much. And I've never met anybody that shares all their feelings. Well, it stung, it hurt a little bit, and then it hit me. I'm too much. I'm alive. You know, grief had taught me how to lose and to live, and when I looked at my future, it looked like it was obstacle-free. Winning looked like a piece of cake. So I asked him, I said, well, do you still want to be with me? And he said, yes, I want to be with you. And I said, well, great. Because if I come across as too much, you have my mother, Annie Lou Magruder, and my son, Noah Abdul Shakur, and my hormones to thank. Because I'm going for being way too much. I'm going for being over the top alive. And then I proceeded to suck his lips down my throat.